The following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Welcome in, everybody, to Taking Care of Business. Today, we are featuring, of course, Generations Chiropractic, and we've got Dr. Ellie with us. Dr. Ellie, good morning.
Good morning.
It is a beautiful fall day out there.
We're finally hitting fall.
We are finally hitting fall. We're only about, 2.5, 3 weeks late, I think?
I don't even know the 21st or 22nd of September is officially when it's supposed to be, but who knows what fall actually means anymore.
Right. At this point in Wisconsin, I just say, it's road construction always, and whatever else happens to be that day of the week. Mm-hmm. Seems fair. Been about a month since we've had you on. Yeah. And always great conversations having you on with us. I want to start by first letting anybody know if you have any questions and you want to ask a question or call into the show, feel free to do so. You can give us a call 920-885-4446, or you can call or text us at 920-887-9595. And we do have Ashley up in the studio. She'll be more than happy to take that call or send that text our way when it comes in. If you're not listening to us on the radio, maybe you're watching us on Daily Dodge TV, maybe both. We appreciate it for that. Go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, be notified when we have shows like this and when you can learn a lot from people like Dr. Ellie. We want to remind people how they can get a hold of you as well. Make sure the number hasn't changed, 920-885-0641. That's going to be if somebody wants to book an appointment or wants to reach out to you directly there at Generations Chiropractic, right?
Absolutely. Or you could even text that number too if that's easier. Again, some people like calling, some people like texting. Otherwise, there's always a spot on the website too that it's like, hey, contact us, like inquiry stuff. So that would be generationschiropracticwi.com.
Perfect. We love it. Now, of course, we can't have you on the show if we don't take at least a small moment. I know it's right at the top of your notes for us to talk about everybody's favorite teammate over there at Generations Chiropractic, and that's Minnie Pearl.
Yeah, so, yes, I get to do all the answering the phones, taking care of the people, whatever. Yes, I absolutely love it, but people really come for Minnie Pearl. And for those of you who don't know, Minnie Pearl is the clinic dog. So she's the welcome wagon, the greeter, all the things.
There you go. And, she's an emotional support friend there for anybody who's
Everyone but me, because,
that's how it goes.
She makes me do the rest of the clinic stuff. She just does I'm going to play with the toddlers. I'm going to play with the kiddos. I'm going to greet people at the door.
That'd be my favorite job, too. Of course, being that, she's a tiny dog, we know that around Halloween, that means dress-up time. And you were nice enough to send us some pictures of some costumes that Minnie has worn. So for anybody who happens to be watching on video, you're in for a treat. If you're listening on the radio, go back on dailydodge.com and check out Taking Care of Business and our shows, or you can find them on YouTube as well. And look for this episode. Check out these costumes. They're amazing. Mm-hmm. We're going to start with this one. I love anytime you dress up an animal as food. I think it's always adorable. And here we go. Minnie Pearl as a slice of pizza. This is just too cute.
So if you also even notice, though, in this picture, this was when about 2 years ago she got into those burr bushes. So her one ear completely jagged because I had to cut all of them out of there, but still looks absolutely adorable with a piece of pizza on her back.
Absolutely. I love the expression on her face as well. You can tell she's enjoying herself, but at the same time, she's like, come on.
Really, Mom?
Let's take a picture. Big fan of this next one, too, the hot dog. This is, again, classic. Normally, when you think a small dog, hot dog, everybody does it with the wiener dogs. But I think if it's a small dog in general, you can pull it off. And, again, how adorable. Plus, you got little seat covers on there that are all, Halloween-y, pumpkin-y. That's a great look.
Yeah, so that's actually at the clinic, a picture at the clinic. Love to be able to decorate the clinic for holidays. Both Minnie Pearl and I will be dressing up the whole last week of October.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, I still need to come up with all the exact ideas. I have literally totes and totes of Halloween costumes because also as a pediatric chiropractic clinic, I want to have fun with the kids and the families. And no, I don't do any scary Halloween costumes. It's like, okay, what are the fun princesses? Oh, yeah, like 1 year I was Minnie Mouse because, Minnie Pearl, Minnie Mouse.
That makes sense. I like it.
And again, it's like I just want to have fun with the kiddos. I want to have fun in the environment, and dress up around Halloween is a fun thing. And also I normally do a little bit of goodies and giveaway stuff, but no candy because we don't need to go down that rabbit hole of sugar. That could be a whole nother topic, whole nother conversation. Right. But yeah, I like to have some fun.
Well, and everybody does candy. It's nice to change it up every now and then. The next costume I'm going to bring up, now this one you said has not made a full public debut yet, but we got some sneak peek pictures here. It's just adorable. This pig costume. How do you not smile at that? That is awesome.
She does so well. I'm like, how would you want to wear a hat like that? And then it has the little openings for the ears. I'm like, she's amazing with how patient she is and, keeping that on her head. And yeah.
And the
just
follow-up
adorable.
photo that came with it, I mean, her just kind of taking a nap. I mean, that's just beyond adorable. It's like, oh, at first you'd think there was like a pig stuffed animal in the doggy bed. And then you're like, oh no, that's Minnie Pearl. She's just hanging out, having a good time.
But you wouldn't really think that was Minnie Pearl if you didn't see the previous picture. So that's why I had to send them both.
Right. And again, adorable. I love it. They come up with some many cute, adorable pet costumes. You said you're still working on what this year's plan's going to be. You're gonna do some stuff. But I guess people want to know. They'll just have to swing by and say hi.
Absolutely. I was going to say I normally try to do a different costume each day of that final week and, just roll with it.
There you go. Now, of course, when I think fall, and I think about fall decorations is one thing, but I also think about there's routines kind of kicking back in. We talked a little bit about it last month, but people are kind of getting back into that typical daytime routine where kids are getting up at a certain day, breakfast, out the door to school, working everything around those school schedules. And so that means now maybe your routines and your schedule kind of has to adjust to fit that a little.
Well, also as I don't want to start addressing it, but we're getting a little bit more darkness during the day. So it's, again, just kind of adaptability of, hey, when do we have accessibility of people getting in for care and trying to overall just create good routines? And this is when I'm noticing a lot more people are like, yeah, we're a month into the school year. I know it's more like almost 2 months now, whatever, month and a half. It's like people are actually starting to figure out their own routines, and it's like, wait, okay, yeah. And it's really cool to see that, some of the parents that come in during the middle of the day when the kids are now at school, they're like, okay, I'm now figuring out my own routine versus in the summer, they bring the kiddos with them and they're all getting adjusted. And then it's like, now sometimes they'll literally come after school just to have the kiddos taken care of, but they so appreciate the few moments during the day when they're able to get their adjustment without the kiddos with them too.
Right. That is kind of nice. And I imagine it's a nice window for people who maybe don't have kids in school, but they've got, a 2-year-old, 3-year-old or whatever at home, a young one, baby maybe, that they want to get looked at and adjusted. It makes that time of the day a little more open to you.
And absolutely, like I even had 2 babies, back to back this morning, and it's so nice that it's like, but we can kind of not even set aside more time during the school day too for some of that age, but yes. And then it's like, hey, all the other people who are still retired that I see too, that's awesome that they have a lot of availability during the middle of the day. And it's like more seeing some of that regularity and some of that consistency versus in summer, it's beautiful that it's like, okay, awesome. You normally have more flexibility every time, but it's like, wait, no, figuring out back to this is the evening at this time between this sports activity and that kind of thing. And that's why I like to have adaptability of sometimes people have more of a drop-in schedule where it's like, hey, sports are canceled, let's get in for care. Or other people are like, no, I need this regimented schedule. And I just love that to be able to offer flexibility and get people the type of care and timing that they need to in their lives.
You touched on something that you said you had 2 baby appointments this morning, and I want to make sure we make a point of mentioning this. Your Generations Chiropractic, because you are treating people through the generations, but a lot of your focus is on that pediatric chiropractic care and those like prenatal and postnatal mommy care, which is kind of an often neglected aspect of chiropractic.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something that I was so passionate about when I brought the practice and started the practice here about 2.5 years ago. There was nothing offering certifications for chiropractors in that area of that specialty for the women of Beaver Dam, let alone all of Dodge County. So it's like, hey, there is a niche, there is a need to be able to serve this demographic too. And yeah, pregnant mamas, babies, kiddos, postpartum mamas, there's something so special about those time frames. And there's so many changes going on. And I want to say even with the body physically, yes, we obviously know that, but more importantly with the brain. And so many people forget that chiropractic is actually all about the brain and how is the brain communicating to the body.
Right.
They think, oh, popping, cracking, here's my neck pain, here's my back pain, help fix this pain.
Right.
And I'm actually looking at how is the brain developing, which continues to dive into some of the things that I love to always learn about. And I always love to expand what do I know and how, even if I've been taught this once in some of my additional seminars focusing on pediatrics and pregnant mamas and babies and all of that, how can I continue to grow and learn more?
Right. And they're always, they're always researching and looking into that more and more and more because obviously you can't study, mental development and health in the course of 6 months and be a big enough window. This is something that takes years to really look at for some of these studies. So,
and things keep changing too. Even
Right.
every couple of months, every couple of years, there's updates, there's changes. Some changes I agree with, some changes I disagree with. And I know that might ruffle some feathers, and I'm okay with that. I mean, like, also, I want to share it how it is. And more importantly, though, I also still want everyone to know you have a place in my clinic too. We don't 100% have to agree on everything. I first off want to start by meeting you with love and genuine of, I see who you are as a person, whether you're struggling with this, whether you disagree with this. I'm like, I want to meet you with love. And from there, how can we journey together, even if we don't 100% agree on everything?
Right. And I mean, and nowadays, we won't get too political with it, but, you get the right side of the aisle, left side of the aisle, whatever. When it comes down to the science of chiropractic care and the art that goes into it, there's no one side or the other. There's no debate on it. Everybody's got a spine, everybody's got, bones, everybody's got nerves and all that other stuff that's going on. It's the same regardless.
And how can we also provide education? Because some of the education is not as prevalent. And even when you look at different pediatricians or you talk about physical therapists or occupational therapists, they all have a place, they all serve a purpose. And plenty of times it's like, oh, your child doesn't need this, so they're fine, or, this or that. And I'm like, well, have you been resourced? Do you have the resources? Do you have the education? Do you have the know-abouts? I'm like, I obviously have a lot more training in this area, and that's something that I desire to be able to share with people too.
Right. And part of that training, you attend seminars. Looks like you actually just went to one this past weekend. Tell us a little bit about this most recent seminar.
Yeah, so this, the official title now is Neurodevelopmental Challenges.
Okay.
So, previously it was called Alphabet Soup.
All right.
You're like, what does that mean?
Right.
And you're kind of like, well, that's kind of fun and different.
It's quite a name change, to say the least.
But some of it is even looking at again, all of the brain development.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were thinking more Alphabet Soup, it was specifically targeting more of the, what are those acronym-y things? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Like ADHD, autism,
Hence the alphabet.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
I was going to say
Okay.
literally, like, even when you talk about like some of the other diseases or, like some of those just long initials, and you're like, literally,
Right.
what does this letter mean? Is it, ADD? Is it ADHD? All those
Right.
different things of like, what letters are supposed to be in this alphabet soup? And now we changed it more to neurodevelopmental challenges, which makes sense in the sense that we're talking about how is the brain growing and developing.
Right.
And we're incorporating a lot more things into some of those seminars too. Like, this is even talking about a piece that we probably won't get much of an opportunity to. What's happening in the brain and the brain changes as you get concussions.
Oh.
How many kiddos these days are out on the sports field getting concussions, and then it's like, okay, well, one day, good to go, now back in the classroom, and they're expected to still be performing in the classroom as good as they were right before the concussion.
Right. And I guess, we're learning more and more, about the science of concussions. And it used to be kind of a, hey, are you okay? Here's some smelling salts. How many fingers am I holding out? All right, you're good. Get back out there. Mm-hmm. And now it's, nope, hard enough hit, concussion protocol. They got to be off the field for X number of whatever. But that's taking them away from further hits.
You talk about so much more about on the field.
Yeah.
What are the changes happening on the field? Not what are the changes happening in the brain. Sure, you might be like, hey, the kiddo's still feeling some nausea or spinning and dizziness.
Right. A little vertigo or something, right.
But how often are we talking about how fatigued are you when you're getting back into the classroom?
That's interesting. I guess not something I really thought about because I, like every other people, take it from the sports aspect only and not from anything else.
Yeah, so that's really, again, talking about what is happening with the development of the brain. And, hey, let's say we were continuing along good progression of the brain. You get this big blow to the brain, and we got to acknowledge we kind of are taking a few steps back. And
Right.
How can we keep moving in that upward trajectory?
And of course, that blow to the brain doesn't have to just happen when they're, middle school, high school, playing football, soccer, whatever. This can happen when kid running outside and trips over something, hits his head on the playground equipment, or, and that's pretty much at almost any age, this sort of thing can happen.
Well, even something to be said for, we're talking about how do you even look at maybe even diagnosing. We don't officially diagnose concussion, but we're like,
Right.
yes, they are having a lot of concussive symptoms. Go see, someone who would officially diagnose as a concussion. But some of those things that are showing up even in infants and toddlers, and hey, there's sometimes the thing of baby might fall off a changing table. Like,
Right.
it happens. But then also, like, wait, we still have to be the ones assessing for, is this maybe unfortunately a shaken baby syndrome thing going on? Like,
Right.
those are the topics I am thankful that I have not had to see in my clinic. And I'm prepared and knowledgeable in them to be able to look at what are some of the subtleties, because a baby isn't going to tell me, oh yeah, I had a concussion, or
Right.
what's going on there either.
That makes a lot of sense. It looks like part of the conversation you guys were having was talking about, I'm just going to read right here, brain information for the developing child. Our brains develop for quite a bit. What's the official, I forget the age, they say like our brains finally stop developing.
Normally they say like 25 years
Yeah.
old of that prefrontal cortex, and that prefrontal cortex is that last thing, and that's still your decision-making process.
Right.
And again, little tangent of every single adjustment to the spine is impacting that prefrontal cortex of the brain. So even more important to make sure up until the age of 25, not that it's like, okay, well, I'm past 25, I don't need chiropractic care, but you need to make sure you're getting good signals
Say for a lot of people I know that's when
all
it
the
starts.
time. Yeah, right. And they're like, oh, I'm now getting older, I'm feeling the aches and pains, and I shouldn't be feeling like this in my 30s. And I'm like, let's start you out young.
Right. And again, that's why you're here. That's what you're working on. And a little bit of a tangent, I want to point out when you're talking about adjusting, like, babies and toddlers, we're not talking about necessarily the same type of stuff that you're doing with, a teenager or an adult that might require that popping, cracking, whatever. You were saying finger sensitive, pressure.
Yeah, fingertip pressure. I mean, some people are like, you sure you're doing anything? And I'm like, actually, the subtleties of noticing how your child is responding here on the table. You see, after I do this a little bit of, I'm going to say an impulse or a little bit of input, they're wanting to kind of wiggle. Often parents are like, Susie, you got to stay flat on the table. Don't move, like
Right.
this. And it's like, no, I want to see them do a little bit of wiggle and see how their body's assimilating that information and adapting to what new information are we providing their body with? How can they better understand their environment and the space around them?
So walk me through some of this. You've got an outline here, and I don't
You're
even
like,
know
how does it
to
even
ask.
go? You're like, I don't even know how it connects here,
Right,
do
'cause
you?
obviously you took in a lot of information at this seminar. You're starting off with milestones of development, and apparently this is something that changed in 2022.
Oh yeah, this is where I'm sure I will probably ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, let's
one
do
of
it.
the one of the many things that'll ruffle some feathers, and we'll just kind of go with it. So overall, brain development really starts in utero. I know some people are like, no, nothing can be happening in utero. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole today.
Right.
But let's start of talking about, you have a kiddo, and normally you're like, okay, what are some of the milestones that this child needs to go through? Well, we're going to be going through, hey, can they lay on their tummy? Can they lift their head? Can they roll?
Right.
Can they sit? Can they crawl? Where are they at with walking? And where are they at with talking?
Yeah,
Those are
typical questions like a parent will ask another parent, like, "Oh, are they walking yet? Or
Right.
have they walked over or rolled over? Do they scoot? Do they crawl?"
And it's often those are, I'm going to say, probably about the big 6 or 7 or so that we normally talk about. And it's like, okay, they're pretty standard. It's like, well, we never really talk about why a child goes through these phases, but, they just do.
Right.
Well, I like to even think of it, and even as it got brought to our attention in the seminars, we need to be thinking about birth as that very first milestone too. Because how they're actually coming out of either the canal or through the belly as a whole, being physically brought into this universe as a separate human being outside of mom is a big thing. That's
Yeah,
where
it's
your
fairly
life
jarring, yeah.
that's where you have a physical separate being. And so birth is a little like, okay, we'll get to that in a moment, and we'll talk about why birth is so important for even starting potentially some of these milestone indicators. Because you're like, well, yeah, okay, we normally measure how many weeks are you when you're starting to lift your head? How many months are you when you're crawling? How many, months when you're starting to walk? So it's normally, well, you have to have that baseline of where you're measuring from too. So
Right.
another excuse for birth to be on there. But crawling is something that I am so irritated with.
Okay.
I know we've talked about this before, like,
A little bit, yeah.
yeah, that there's been a Pampers commercial, and it's talking about, hey, your child's all going in the same direction, but they might be doing it differently, and just very well-known company, well-known commercial.
Right.
And it's like some are scooting, some are bear crawling, some are regular crawling, some are
Right.
like doing an army crawl, and they're like, they're all going, but, here we have a diaper that'll, expand in this portion and this portion, make sure they're safe and protected, that kind of thing. I'm not going to go into the rabbit hole about diapers. That's not what I'm here to talk about.
Right.
I'm more talking about what's happening with all the crawling things. It's not normal for there to be so many different patterns of crawling.
Right.
There is one true and official way to crawl, and let me back up. Again, you can tell that I can get kind of passionate about this. Even back in the 90s, there's a study that came out with one MD that was saying, like, oh, there's 25 different variations of how to crawl.
I mean, I always thought it was just like hands and knees, right? Like that's the typical?
That's
like the norm?
It should be one type of crawling, and then you can maybe say that there's 24 variants, but those variants aren't what they should be. When you think about crawling, you normally think, okay, hands and knees and, every other kind of thing.
The same thing we would do if we were crawling from one spot to another. Hands and knees would be pretty normal.
Yes, but also now everyone is normalizing all the other patterns of, hey, if I'm going to just butt scoot my entire way there, or nope, I'm going to just, really crawl with my two front hands and, really, work through one leg, but just, kind of let the last leg sort of linger along.
Right.
People are all saying, well, these are all normal.
I mean, not to throw a wrench in it, but I mean, I had a cousin who would crawl everywhere, but with his head rested on the floor, and he kind of push his head along, and he did that for a good couple of months, and everybody was just like, "Oh yeah, look at him, he thinks he's funny, it's so cute." And looking back on it now, I'm like, that probably wasn't normal. It's probably an indicator of something.
Well, I was going to say that's probably a perfect example of how much is he really wanting to lift up his head. Again, big milestone there. When you're lifting up your head, number one thing you're doing is getting awareness of the environment around you.
Yeah, he ran into a lot of stuff, so.
Yeah, and if you're also, you can't lift your head up, or, hey, let's even talk about if you have a little bit of a tip of your head the entire time, you're now perceiving the entire world at an angle. When you talk about torticollis, those eyes aren't going to be level if you're, in torticollis where more like that ear and shoulder is kind of tilted, and it's like, especially if you look in a car seat and you see like this constant tilt, every input they're now getting from the world is now on a tilted basis for this child.
I guess I didn't really think about that, but their perception of how they see things at this young developmental age really kind of influences everything going forward.
It creates the baseline of why are we going to be talking so much about neurodevelopmental things, and I'm focusing so much more on the infant and baby right now, because within the first 2 years of life is when you get 80% of your neurodevelopmental input.
So does that mean we should be going out there and getting special pillows for the car seat so their head stays straight all the time, or doing it? Or are there other things we can be doing?
It's about how the brain is communicating to the body. Just because you're saying, hey, I'm going to hold your head up nice and straight in this pillow does not change at all what's happening in the body.
Right.
How the brain is communicating to the body. It's, let's put a pillow, let's put a Band-Aid. Like, no, that's not changing the internal system that the baby needs to be able to regulate and adapt to itself. So, yeah, even when it comes to, back to kind of the crawling thing, because I'm like still so passionate about some of this, like, you need that good cross crawl pattern in order to get information, creating the synapses in the brain so signals can go left side to right side. Because you talk about one side of the brain is a little bit more artistic and creative, and one side is more logical and numbers. We need to be able to get the communication between the two. When you often see a baby who can't cross crawl well, they're often also normally the ones who have less coordination when it comes to sports. And again, their brains literally aren't communicating side to side. And one of the beautiful things that came out of one of these studies that's like, okay, well, there's like 25 different crawling patterns. There's been correlations found for those who have abnormal crawling patterns that they often may result in autism later in life.
Now, this is obviously, and we're going to get a little bit of on a hot button topic, but recently diagnosis for things like autism has been in the news. And the very first thing they blamed was acetaminophen. I can't talk, Tylenol. Mm-hmm. I'm sounding like the guy who can say it. But they're trying to normalize that as being the cause at pre-birth.
In pregnancy, when people are taking that. Yep.
And saying, well, that's the cause. That's what's doing it. That's the big factor. But But you're saying science is saying there's other indicators and other connections that are being made that aren't related to that.
And I'm, again, big soapbox.
Right.
Totally I could go down that whole Tylenol, acetaminophen. Okay, what's happening with fever and pregnancy? Again, we could have more than a whole episode on that and my
Right.
thoughts about how some of that's coming about. But yeah, let's literally just look at from this point on. One of the biggest things, even when it is a child and if they get some kind of diagnosis like autism or on the spectrum or, some of these other behavioral things, it's multiple insults to the brain. It's multiple impacts to the brain. And it's not saying like, okay, the insult of, hey, I got knocked on the floor like a concussion. What are lots of influences that the body can't adapt to all of them? So it's like, yes, there might be contributors of, yeah, maybe this acetaminophen did do something. Hey, maybe this baby was it was a tough birth process for mom and baby. Hey, maybe this happened, all of these different things. Maybe I can't latch correctly. Well, all of the things are little insults, little insults, little insults. And then how as a whole in a collective, and I'm even just looking at when it comes to the crawling pattern, this is what a correlation is. If we're seeing that already at this age that the baby is not crawling how it should, let's just look at how that amount relates to how the child continues to develop if nothing is intervened.
Right. And of course, throw this out there. We're not saying that like getting your baby, pediatric chiropractic care is going to guaranteed prevent autism. Obviously, what we're saying is this is going to help prevent some of those little insults, as the term we put, from happening, which can be beneficial.
And it's all about how can I help create the best environment for this child. And what I kind of like to talk about is some of these big roadblock injuries, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
So that's basically saying that what is the lowest level of the brain function that has been reached, or it hasn't been reached? Like, why hasn't it been mastered? So, it's like there are different things that lead to why the child can't progress past this point, whether it's they can't progress to a regular crawling pattern, or sometimes you hear about cerebral palsy and, they're normally so much in a flexed position and kiddos like that, and they'll end up going to occupational therapy and physical therapy and spending a lot of time with that. Well, normally the number one goal there is like, let's work on getting this child walking. Let's get this child walking. And I'm like, no, we need to still go back through all of those milestones from, the lifting the head. Are we sitting? Are we rolling? Are we crawling before we get to walking and talking? So sometimes it is kind of stepping things back and kind of figuring out where has this process not been mastered and how can we help? And we can help through chiropractic adjustments, and some exercises can be super important because I'm only with the child a little bit while I'm getting the child adjusted. Parents get the opportunity to be able to hopefully spend a lot of time with the child, or else, again, plenty of times that children need to go to daycare, different facilities, that kind of thing, because parents are working too. But overall, how can we provide resources through adjustments, through exercises, through things to help improve some of the brain communication to the body, because it's so much about what is happening with the brain.
So do you then sometimes maybe send the parents home with a little bit of I don't want to say homework, but it's hey, here's some things you can do at home to kind of help with, strengthening them and moving them towards these milestones?
Absolutely. So like even this morning I talked about one of the babies, the parents are like, okay, we're going on a trip. And I'm like, they're like, what can we do to be, helping? Because we know this child's going to be in the car seat for so many hours. I'm like, great. Here is, like a little paintbrush, and actually along this part of their spine, I'm going to have you swipe it like 10 times on each side, a couple of times a day. And they're kind of like, okay, cool. And then it's like, and also I'm like, hey, maybe help a little bit of, the child's pose, kind of putting them in a little bit of the child's pose. Like this is a young infant, pretty young infant, but it's again, different exercises and suggestions based on what the age of the child and what they're showing up to.
Right.
So we often figure out where the need might be for some of these checks and stuff based on what is going on with their primitive reflexes when I check them. And you're like, what is primitive reflexes?
Right. Like cavemen?
What? So if you ever go to a doctor, normally they bring out that reflex hammer and they're like, okay, they're going to tap your elbow,
which
or
even
they're
looks
going to
like
tap.
a caveman hammer, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But take that and tap either your elbow or your knee. Those are two of the most common, or like behind the heel.
Right. And you kick or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, primitive reflexes are even some reflexes that normally need to happen in the birthing process. And the body is so cool that it has designed these reflexes to help baby expel itself from mommy's belly.
Okay.
So when even the birthing process ends up being through the belly, baby hasn't needed to activate these. Because like even there's one like through the feet that is literally meant to push itself against the top of mom's belly to start to descend even more.
Right.
And like another one that's meant to help the baby twist, because like when it's starting to come out of the canal, it starts one way, but then to get the rest of the body, it literally wants to twist like 90 degrees to descend the rest of the way.
Right.
So I'm going to say like 5 main reflexes that I kind of like to think about, and can be very helpful with some of the primary exercises I'll give people. So we're talking about rooting, Palmer, Babinski, Gallant, and ATNR.
Okay.
You're like, slow down.
I understood the word rooting.
You're like, you are getting so nerdy, chill out.
Yeah,
I'm like,
this is great.
Yes. And that's why I'm also like, I told you I'm going to get passionate about things and I might just go. So we're just rolling with it.
Let's do it. So run me through them. What are they?
Yeah. So rooting is like, if you see a baby instinctively wants to eat. So it's like, okay, what's kind of happening by the cheek? Like if you, in theory, put like a pacifier or the breast next to the child, like it's going to want to turn towards there.
Right.
So it's like, okay, is a child wanting to eat? Another one is Palmer, and that's talking about your hand. When you put your finger in a baby's hand, it should just clasp it down.
Right. And boy, are they strong.
Yes. And it's a thing of like, you want to just make sure that all babies can be doing these things, in that like they're instinctive in the baby. Another one, Babinski, is like if you tickle a baby's foot more or less, like it normally goes, with the feet itself, that they kind of.
Yeah, the toes spread and
Exactly. So like that's, what some of Babinski is. Gallant is a little bit more like, this is sort of what I was talking about actually with that other child today, like stroking down the back and seeing like, does the baby kind of wiggle to the side or not?
Right.
And then.
I do that when my wife scratches my back. I'm like, ooh, that feels,
Okay, so then also it makes me wonder. I'm like, so this is a fun fact of when we were even testing all these on ourselves, because they might show up in babies as, hey, infants, they're meant to have these primitive reflexes, and then they normally subside as you go through development. But there might be something that brings them back, or they may have never actually disappeared. So those are more retained reflexes, more in adults or older
I've retained
age.
some of my primitiveness.
So, and literally as chiropractors, we went through and tested these on each other, and I'm like, yeah, I have some of a retained Gallant, actually.
Well, there you go. You have something in common.
A fun fact, though, Gallant often relates to bedwetting stuff.
Oh.
So kiddos who often have
Haven't bedwetted in a very long time, thank you.
Yeah, but and I haven't either, but But a thing of often those are kiddos who you'll be seeing in the classroom that end up getting the ADHD type diagnosis, because they're like, okay, something's along my back and I'm going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Right there.
So, And then ATNR, I like to think of as a little bit more of a global, how is the brain communicating to the body? So like when we're talking more about mouth and hand, that's more upper body. And then we're talking more kind of trunk and feet, more lower body, and then one global kind of thing. So kind of testing some of these, and same way to kind of test them is ways that we're going to give strategies and exercises. Hey, they're supposed to disappear, but even like myself, I've worked through getting rid of this Gallant to kind of turn it back down, and it's definitely gotten better. But I'm also like, oh yeah, I've gotten lazy, and even stress can bring back some of these things. If you're overwhelmed, overworked, constantly going, whether it's, hey, you maybe had a concussion or again some other big trauma to the body, your body is going to go back to the lowest primitive state in its brain. How can we just do the absolute basic? And sometimes it doesn't get the opportunity to turn these back off.
And now, looking at your notes on here, so I see a note saying that C-section birth, babies miss some of these activations, like you were talking about the pushing out and the turning, whatever. So do we then have to work through different things to kind of get them on the same level?
Normally, what can be a really beneficial thing is if you go through some of these exercises and you actually almost want to stimulate those reflexes in the baby so that you can actually see them occurring. Yeah. And then as they continue to grow up and age and develop, they'll disappear in a healthy capacity. So yeah, sometimes you want to make sure that you can, since they haven't had to have these fire like they should, you want them to know that they can fire.
And so do these then serve sometimes as additional roadblocks to development that they need to be worked through then? That's kind of the importance of it?
Yeah, so it can even be a combination of if you're talking a brand new newborn and they aren't showing up with these, it's like, ooh, we want, because for example, if a newborn baby doesn't want to eat, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not a good thing.
Right. So it's like, okay, we need to be stimulating this reflex so that the baby knows, oh yeah, food, or oh yeah, I'm about to be, getting my nutrition. Like that's a good thing that
Right.
they want and need to crave it. And then as you get older, though, you want these reflexes to disappear. So depending on what phase and how things are at, and there's a stereotypical time frame as to when these should disappear based on development. And we just want to go through a good progression of, are we supposed to have it or should we not have it? Because there's, a healthy response and an overactive response.
Okay.
So
That's good
I
to
know
know.
lots of information, and it's like, but I can't even get a visual of this. I'm like, yes, come into the office. Let's test your reflexes, see how it's going, and see
Right.
where we're at, that we need some support.
Well, and it can be a real eye opener because when you mention, because I was like, oh, I like that myself, and you're like, yeah, well, actually, she's like, way to call me out.
Well, and I don't know.
But-
I'm just saying, I'm calling myself out too.
Right.
It's not that I'm perfect with these things. It's again, even though I'm getting regular chiropractic care, I'm trying to do all the things. Hey, yeah, these are things that I don't even always think about. And like, who is the person checking all these on all the little ones and giving you strategies as to how we can help support the process too?
Right, because that's not something that, when you have a baby and they go, here's your brand new baby, here's the book of instructions, like, you take it home and you're like, what do I got to do? Like, they don't teach you to do these things.
And there's even some things to be said for all those well baby checks that are normally so frequent within the first year. Hey, oh cool, it has a good, palmar grasp, it can grasp, that kind of thing. You rarely, even once you start to, have hand control and you're sitting in a classroom, do you progress, or do even any providers progress to testing it in more the adult capacity and see if somehow it's, even if it disappeared like it should have at the proper age, what if something brought it back?
Interesting. Okay. And I guess I think about, like, as an adult, if somebody puts something in my hand now, I know, like, I don't instinctively grab it.
Right.
I have no problem just holding it and be like, all right, what's this? What's going on? Mm-hmm. But
And it's
there are
almost
people.
a different way also. It's kind of like if you have one of the best ways is kind of like a paintbrush, or like still some kind of source along here.
Right.
And so for those who can see, better for them. But
yeah,
it's
you're
like,
basically going up the palm towards
yeah,
the fingers.
and it's
Right.
kind of even seeing them like, it might be subtle, but like, okay, what if when I do this, like, whoa, my hand twitches like that?
Right.
And it's like that twitch is not happy and natural and normal.
Now, if that is happening, is that an indicator of something?
That's normally an indicator that you somehow have a retained
Right.
primitive reflex there if it gets a little twitchy like that.
And that's something that can be then worked through and okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Wow. That's something I'm going to have to dive into more. But I want to keep going because we got some more stuff on your list here that we want to touch on. And this next one's kind of interesting because it touches on some things. I'm just going to state what they are because you have them listed as the 4 A's. Autism, ADHD, asthma, and allergies. And there are 4 things. Like 2 of them feel like they're very related. The other 2 feel like they're very related, but they don't seem like they all relate to each other. Mm-hmm. But I'm about to guess you're telling me that they kind of do.
What's all happening with all of these is that they're brain-based issues. People think asthma and allergies, oh, that's lungs. Am I able to breathe? Am I able to get oxygen in? Or they're thinking, okay, autism, ADHD, that's even, again, kind of development issues.
Right.
They're all brain issues. The brain is not communicating to the body, and it's showing up in different insults in some ways. And for example, like what some people might think of as a more severe insult might be more spectrum, ADHD, some of those behavior things versus, oh yeah, every child, has asthma or allergies. Like, yeah, they're going to run the mile. Of course they're going to be, coughing and, hard to breathe after that. Or, yeah, everyone in the family has fall allergies, spring allergies, whatever. I'm like, no. Why are we having those allergies? What level of, again, maybe we hit the roadblock earlier that it could be the exact same level of roadblock of, let's say they never crawled, but some children also just have other, I'm going to use the word neurotoxicity, and insults in their environment that create a more severe presentation of something.
Okay.
And then a little bit down the rabbit hole when it comes to autism stuff. It is a big thing that we as a society need to be looking at. Back in the 1970s, it was 1 in 10,000.
Okay. Not super common.
No. Now, a few months ago, it's 1 in 31.
Now, is that just because we can diagnose it better, or is there changes in like our lifestyle potentially?
I want to more focus on the second half, even though most people are like, okay, well, now there's more of like, we're acknowledging things sooner. And even if you're not having great eye contact, we're going to call that as, part of the spectrum versus, no, you had to have all of these severities, probably back in the 70s.
Right.
Let's look at that second half of the answer of what has changed in the environment. I am very thankful that I was born when I was born.
Right.
Even when we're looking at what has happened in the world since 2005, that has been a big turning point for the development and the significant increases in rates of some of these things.
Okay.
And people are going to be like, oh, we're going to blame it all on cell phones. You're only going to blame it on cell phones. Cell phones have a lot to do with it. But there are a lot of other environmental things that impact things as well. So it might sound kind of silly, but we really even need to be talking about and looking at like, what are some of the lights around us? Like, are we having very intense fluorescent lights?
Right.
And again, that's all stimulus and information coming into the body, and maybe the body just can't process some of this. What kind of AC and air vents do we have in, especially like big conference centers or things like that? Are you making all the background noise of the constantly?
The hum of the world, so to speak. Yeah.
Yep. So all of those are constant impulses kind of bombarding the brain and body, creating more of a neurotoxic environment for which everyone is living in and everyone is constant in. And then starting in 2007 is when the iPhone was introduced, and you can't deny that everyone now, as we're sitting here holding our iPhone, we're kind of, head forward, sort of squinting at it.
Right.
That is the same posture when you're holding and kind of squinting at your phone that you normally do, like, hey, if I'm in the woods, did I hear something? Is there something out there? That's really a defense positioning for the body, and trying to remind your body and warn your body, I'm in a defense state, let's protect. So now all these children are being bombarded by the sensory things on the outside of
Right.
the sounds, the smells, I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole of fragrance and some of the toxins in there, but all the toxins outside of you, and we're also looking at screens too. So all these things are, okay, my generation, we didn't have to deal with as many of those external inputs.
Right.
So yeah, definitely has related to a lot more things for the brain has been challenged against, but what are we doing to help support the brain in the process?
Right. Well, you mentioned like the defensive things. So when our body goes into that, fight or flight defensive mode, our brain tells our body to release certain chemicals and stuff internally to help us cope with that and prepare with it. If that's constantly happening, that can't be good, right? That's got to be causing issues.
Uh-huh.
And so when you don't have that and you're used to it, that then leads to a whole other set of issues, right? Like you feel like you should be defensive, but you're not.
Or like what's going on, and
Right.
that's why getting people out of the state can be a lot. And it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes adaptation. If someone doesn't want to be laying down, face down on my table because they don't feel safe in that environment, I'm not going to have them do that. We're going to work on building trust, whether that means we're sitting on the table, whether we're in mom's arms, however we need to get someone adjusted, because the number one thing in order to create change is safety and security and feeling like there is that sense of trust.
Do you have recommendations for people who, like I think about now, like, okay, well, my phone's sitting here. Should I be doing something different other than just using it less? Is there something I should be looking for my kids as a way to allow them to still use their stuff, but maybe not be in that hunched over, head down kind of thing? Because I can tell you, every parent out there right now, if you say, well, take your kids' phones away for a few hours, that's a battle they're going to do once or twice, then they're going to stop doing it.
And this is where it kind of gets hard. Like, sure, blue light blockers might be good on the phones, might be helpful. Yes, like, okay, even if we're going to use our phone, how can we maybe like lay on our belly ourselves and kind of, again, having to go back into that original tummy time and lifting up the head. That's still better than, okay, am I just sitting here at a desk allowing myself to scrunch forward? But more importantly, I'm not going to be taking away your phone. Again, parents are like, dude, I'm not battling that. How can we create and add other things into the regimen to help support the body and support the brain, whether that's through chiropractic adjustments, whether that is as a whole? How can we provide more senses of safety? So, like, cell phones can be very practical, not denying that at all. Obviously, mine is sitting right here.
Right.
And what are we doing at other times when I'm not immediately looking at the cell phone to create safety in my own body? Breath is normally one of the best things to be able to create safety. And I know we've talked about it before, but this is going to be the reminder for everyone. Good, big belly breaths are going to be one of the best things to try to help work on re-regulating the system and creating that sense of safety, whether it's we're working with someone more spectrum-wise, whether we're working with babies are normally quite awesome that they naturally do that beautiful big belly breath.
Right.
But whether it's someone on the spectrum, whether it's a working mom, whether it's the elderly, as we age, we forget to breathe, and that often also leads to difficulties of us staying in that sense of safety and regulation there.
I know I personally take about 5 minutes every day to do a little mini meditation. And it's not always a sit on the floor, lotus position, whatever, like, because I'm old and that doesn't work for me as anymore. But it's just find a quiet place, all distractions away, just focus on the breathing. Just breathe deep for about 5 minutes. I always feel better afterwards.
One of my favorite strategies for teaching a kiddo how to belly breathe, what is their favorite toy? That is not a cell phone. And just even putting it on, have them lay on their back, have mom or dad put it on their belly and say, basically try to push the belly up to the ceiling.
That makes sense.
It's
easy.
like
Kids
simple
can
enough
understand it,
and
yeah.
like, hey, oh, cool. I get to see my favorite toy right here as I'm looking at it. I'm laying on my back, up and down. Like,
I like that. That's
and
simple.
even when we go back to, hey, if a child didn't reach milestones, like let's say a baby never lifted their head, let's hold them in their arms and squeaky toy, squeak, 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 squeak. They're going to want to lift their head. So even some of these things of how can we help guide them and give a little bit of input, little bit of strategy in order to help reach these things. Because yes, it's teamwork. Yes, it's a journey, but we definitely can be doing the things.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time here. We could probably talk about this for another hour, 2, 3. But any final messages, anything else you want to share with the listeners out there today?
I could go down this rabbit hole for so long, but the number one thing I want to say is when it comes to brain development and wherever someone is at, whether they're an infant, whether they're a child, whether they're an adult, there is always room for hope. And I always want to make sure, number one thing is a message of love and hope that I'm providing to people, because I am a true proponent that some people might say it's impossible, but I am more like, nope, the impossible can be possible. We just might take a little bit longer on this journey together. So yes, how can we create a journey together of maybe home exercises, maybe breathing, and definitely getting checked with some chiropractic, brain-based chiropractic care to help everyone live the best life that they're capable of living.
There you go. A little bit of love, a little bit of hope, a little bit of Minnie Pearl, and a little bit of Dr. Ellie all there at Generations Chiropractic. Again, reach out, generationschiropracticwi.com.
Yep.
And then 920-885-0641, the number to text or call. Texting works great, though, if you want to see about booking an appointment or if you have any questions or concerns. Awesome. Dr. Ellie, thanks for coming on. Always super informative. I'm going to have so many questions. I'm sure I'm going to have to look into a lot of this. But look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, I know I got really squirrely with some of this because I'm just so passionate. I'm like, I could go on and on and on, but I'm like, hopefully people were able to take a little bit away and grow and go from there.
And if you have any questions or if you're thinking, well, maybe I need to get my kiddo checked out for some of these things, Dr. Ellie and Generations Chiropractic, a great option for you to look into. This has been a paid program. The advice and opinions on the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands.